Yo people, welcome back to the YouTube channel. You already know what time it is. It's time for another video. Big up your damn selves in the building. Make sure you smash up the likes on the way in. Now, of course, we've got a striker situation to discuss. So let me know in the comments, which one of these three strikers, Muani, Vlahovic and Martinez, which one do you want before the video, and has your mind changed after the video? If it hasn't, then just go with the same striker twice. Let me know who do you want. Now, you know my personal preference. You know my opinion. I've already given it in terms of the fact that we have already kind of, switched our attack. We've completely changed our attack in terms of what we started last season with and what we're starting this season with. We've got Madueke and Mudryk to have their first full seasons now in the Premier League. We have Sterling, who can't get any worse, who is used to contributing with goals at Manchester City. Despite the big chances, maybe missed, the conversion rate being a myth, we still expect goals from him. And also in Cuckoo, a new signing. Jackson, a new signing. And then on top of that, Broja, who really didn't see much football last season, also to play hopefully a full season here in terms of his fitness, now back in pre-season. So we've already completely changed and altered our attack. And that's not even whilst talking about a new manager with a new system to implement a better manager than what we had for the majority of last season. And listen, for me personally, that's just enough change to expect there to be more goals and expect there to be better finishing. But listen, if we are going for this new, bigger name striker, then we may as well discuss the personal preference. For myself, who would I like out of these three options? So let's get into the statistics of these three strikers from last season. We're only going to go through the league performance. We're not going to go through Europe. We're not going to go through the cups because we don't know the levels of the teams, and it's, it gets a little bit sticky icky, a little bit fugazi. So we're just sticking with the league. It keeps it simple. Bundesliga and two strikers from the Serie A. So let's give some context before we talk about these players even more. So Muani, we start with him, age 24, 15 goals, 14 assists, 2,646 minutes played, 0.51 per 90, 5.1 per 90 for goals, 14 big chances missed and 14% conversion rate. So keep that in your mind. We move on to Vlahovic, age 23. So just 1 year younger, 10 goals, 2 assists in Serie A, 1,931 minutes played, 0.47 per 90 for goals, and of course 9 big chances missed and 10.1 conversion rate percentage. And we move to Martinez, 25 years old, so the oldest out of the three, but they're all kind of within the similar age range, which again leans to why we're interested in all three. 21 goals, 3 assists, 2,573 minutes, 0.75 per 90 for goals, and then 19 big chances missed and an 11.9 conversion rate. Now, just to compare and contrast, first of all, let's start. Like I said, they're all within the same age range. Muani with a better conversion rate than Martinez, with less goals. Now, listen, Inter Milan have finished second in terms of big chances created last season in Serie A. Frankfurt, on the other hand, finished 9th. So a lot less big chances being created for the striker of Muani than there is to Martinez, and that obviously leans to the fact that Martinez has missed more big chances, as read out, and the conversion rate therefore is lower. So Inter Milan, even though we saw in the Champions League final, they can work in transition, they can be quite defensive and go on the counter-attack against Man City. They have created a lot more big chances in comparison to Frankfurt, like I said. And for me personally, I don't watch Martinez and get this kind of vibe that he's this killer in front of goal. I know he's been stacking up 20 plus goals per season for Inter Milan for the last couple of years, but he doesn't give me that Sergio Aguero, Luis Suarez kind of clinical, deadly striker in front of goal to compare him to his South American counterpart. So for me personally, that doesn't really shock me. I don't get that, banker kind of vibe and, hang your hat on him kind of vibe. But in terms of the minutes played, they're both quite similar. Obviously, Vlahovic is a lot lower. He did struggle with quite a few injuries last season, so that ruined his momentum, and therefore his statistics, if you put that into context, are kind of justified to an extent. His conversion rate is obviously lower, but not too much lower than Martinez, only about just about 2%, 1%, around about that ballpark. But also, like I said, he hasn't really had any opportunity to get momentum, and he's been in and out of that Juventus side. So out of the three, he's the most pure striker. He's the target man slash box striker. You know, he's the big man to the little man. You take a look at who Martinez has been partnered up with in the last couple of years. Your Edin Dzeko's, your Lukaku's, Vlahovic fits that kind of mold. And Martinez and Muani are maybe players that will drop into the half space a little bit more, operate in the half space a little bit more, carry the ball, dribble with the ball, be effective in areas outside of just the 6-yard box, as opposed to Vlahovic, who you'll see in his percentiles, this guy is just in the box, putting the ball in the back of the net. That's his job. Pretty stationary. He does drop deep, but I kind of look at these kind of bigger, you know, turn like truck strikers, you know, quicksand strikers, when they're outside of the penalty box, if they are doing build-up play, they are quite stiff. And if their confidence is low, you expect their touches per game to be a lot lower, because, you know, some players, if they're low on confidence, they actually want to get the ball a lot more. They want to get on the ball for heavy involvement to get their confidence up. I find with the Lukakus and the Vlahovic, is their confidence is low, they're less likely to touch the ball, and that's where they start to become either isolated or they're just relying upon service. Muani's and Martinez's are more likely to get involved in the game, get more touches, and actually, you know, be productive, like I said, outside the box. So that's just something to bear in mind. You know my preference in terms of strikers. I prefer strikers that are more heavily involved in general, you know, in the game. I'm scarred. I have PTSD, like I said. These strikers that rely completely on service and don't really give you much in terms of build-up play, I prefer not to speak. So let's get into the variety of finishes. From Muani, 6 with his right foot, 3 with his left foot, 3 headers, 2 penalties, 1 counter-attacking goal, no tap-ins, no long-range strikes. So good balance, obviously favours on his right foot. So does Martinez. Of course, you look at Vlahovic as the only left footer. Probably works in his favour if you're talking about a good contrast between what we have. You know, Nkuku's right-footed, Broja's right-footed, Jackson's right-footed. Vlahovic gives you a different angle to kind of work with in terms of finishing. The other two, the same, you know, preferred foot that we already have. So that's probably a plus point in Vlahovic's favour. And speaking of Vlahovic, we go to his types of goals. We go 3 left foot, 2 penalties, 2 direct free kicks, 1 tap in, 1 header, 1 counter-attacking goal, no long shots, and no solo goals, no solo kind of run. This is all off transfer market. And then of course we go to Martinez as well. 5 on his left, 7 on his right, 2 tap-ins, 2 headers, 2 counter-attacking goals, 1 penalty, 1 solo, and 1 long shot. So again, you know, a nice variety, shows that he's happy to shoot with his left if given the opportunity, if he must. And of course, favours on his right. And yeah, it's a good variety from him to have as well. So, you know, good to see, you know, some headed goals from all of them, because the balls will come into the box from the Gustos, from the Reece Jameses, and I would like, you know, a striker that up there can, you know, handle themselves aerially and potentially get some goals. You'd probably say out of all of them that you're banking on maybe Vlahovic to get the most headed goals, but Muani has 3, you know, Martinez has a couple as well. All of them, you know, maybe stand just as much as a chance as the next. I wouldn't say any of them are prime Didier Drogba by any stretch of the imagination. Now, talking about, for me, Muani in terms of what I get from them in their systems, right? You're looking at Muani coming into our team. He currently plays in a 3-4-3 at Frankfurt as a lone striker, similar to the formation we used under Tuchel. Vlahovic is more playing in a 3-5-2 with a strike partner, sometimes with an attacking midfielder. It's either Di Maria or it's Chiesa, or sometimes it's Milik. I call him Milk. And then you've got Martinez, who's operating in a 3-5-2, and he's playing up front with Edin Dzeko or Lukaku. Again, used to playing in that 2-striker partnership. So Vlahovic and Martinez are used to playing in 2-striker partnerships a bit more, especially Martinez. You look at how we play and how we set up potentially next season in Nkuku and maybe a Jackson, or Nkuku and a Broja. You could say that Martinez is probably best fit for the Nkuku role, purely because he's used to playing with a big man up top, which would be more your Broja Jackson profiles. Could Nkuku and, you know, Martinez play together? I'm not going to completely rule it out, even though we haven't seen Martinez play with that profile before, because we've seen Aguero and Carlos Tevez play together in the Premier League for Manchester City. You know, you don't have to have a big man and a little man. You can have 2, you know, smaller profiles together that can interlink, interchange, you know, work off each other, you know, and have that link up. If the chemistry is there, the chemistry is there. But like I said, it's not something I've seen with Martinez, so it's a question mark. He usually plays with a bigger striker, and he usually drops deeper. And his link up play, if you take a look at Martinez's percentiles, and especially the work rate. If we're going to start with him, because he is kind of Pochettino's favourite, right? You look at his percentiles, this guy works. He's got that dog in him, right? He's going to get your tackles, your interceptions, pressing high up the pitch. Inter Milan, you know, 5th for possession, 1 in the final third last season. Listen, this is partly Martinez. I'm not gonna lie. This guy is a dog up there, and that's what Pochettino probably wants in the forward line, is to win the ball high up the pitch and to press. That's what we know from him. Muani, you know, his percentiles are not anywhere near as good. Not to say that, you know, his work rate is poor, but I just think in terms of maybe his technique in actually winning the ball back or cutting out passing lanes, Martinez is vastly more experienced at doing it. But Frankfurt, in terms of winning possession in the final third, they're third in the Bundesliga, so they're not stacking up too poorly. And then in terms of Vlahovic, probably the poorest out of the three. Again, like I said, he doesn't move with this mad intensity. For me, he looks quite sluggish. He can move kind of takes a long time to turn. Feels like a truck. Feels like sometimes it feels like he's stuck in the mud. That's kind of how I see Vlahovic. So he could, and we'll talk about price later on, he could be the cheapest out of all of the options, depending on who you listen to, because all the reports are kind of varied and you know, can contrast. But in terms of the style, I would say that, you know, for me, yes, Vlahovic is giving you a completely different profile to what we have in terms of being left-footed and giving you a different angle. But in terms of my preference, I'm personally going with Muani, because I do think technically, I do worry sometimes about, listen, Martinez is kind of good at everything, but he's not great at anything. And I've kind of heard that story before. Muani looks like he's really good at taking on players, dribbling, you know, going past players, but he's not, you know, a prolific finisher, you could say. And of course, you know, Martinez is the preference of Poch. But for me, I like Muani. I really do. I think out of the 3 players so far, this is probably my favourite. You've got that French link up. A lot of people say he's similar to Jackson. He is. In terms of profile, in terms of, you know, metrics, he's probably similar to Jackson, but I do prefer Jackson and to the other profiles. And to be honest, when I look at Martinez, I would worry about big game moments as well. We're talking about the World Cup. Obviously, Muani had the World Cup final as well, but Martinez, I've seen him dash plenty of big moments away in Champions League final as well. You know, you could say he should have passed to Lukaku at a point. So, you know, it's a sketchy one for both. Now, also, how do we set up? You know, we have to talk about that, because we've spoken about where Martinez could play. Muani's most likely going to play and compete for the same position as a Jackson and a, you know, Broja. If he's going to play, he's going to play as a striker. That's where he's playing for Frankfurt. So it's going to be Nkunku alongside Muani in that front two. Vlahovic, you're looking at, again, playing as a striker alongside Nkunku as a front two. He's not going to play where Nkunku plays. So you're looking at potentially 2 strikers here and 1 second striker. Maybe Martinez could play both, but you're looking at 2 strikers, 1 second striker that potentially plays both. That's how I'm looking at it. Now, in terms of, you know, like I said, my preference is Muani. Vlahovic for me is probably bottom of the list. I just feel like, yes, there's potential there. He's obviously young. He could be crafted, well-rounded, and kind of elevated to another level. But I'm suffering from PTSD from the type of movement that he provides. And like I said, in a faster paced league, which the Premier League is, it's zippy, it's quick. I look at Vlahovic and I think he could be kind of just killed by the tempo of the league, let alone anything else. Martinez is at least a hustler, a harrier. You know, he's gonna be no problem keeping up with the tempo. He plays at a high speed, does very well in transitions for Inter Milan, and Muani as well. Again, high tempo, high speed, and you know, in terms of technically, I think he's probably the guy that I look to the most in terms of that security. He gives me the least worries technically. I think Muani can mix it with the rest of them. Like I said, he can take players on, go past players, drop deep, link up play. Martinez is a jack of all trades in that sense. He can link up play. His percentiles are maybe the most promising out of everyone's, judging off what he did last season. But you know, like I said, he's not going to kill you technically, but I don't think he's credible technically. I think he's kind of just decent to good at everything. And Vlahovic for me is an absolute no. I'm scared. So that's where I'm leaning to with these players. That's what I'm leaning to. Do let me know what you think though, because like I said, it's one of those ones where I can see why people are going to justify for any of the options and why they're going to, you know, tell me why you want Muani, tell me why you want Vlahovic, tell me why you want Martinez. In terms of price point, you go through Muani. In terms of reports, the price is potentially dropping from Frankfurt, but again, still quite expensive. But again, I don't know. These are all expensive targets. Vlahovic, again, his price is kind of moving around all over the place. It's fluctuating depending on who you listen to. Juventus need the money, so it has dropped a little bit. There were reports that, you know, you came from Matt Law not so long ago that you could potentially kill two birds with one stone because maybe you could push Lukaku to Juventus, even though his preference is into Milan. And then you've got Martinez, who is Poch's preference, but most likely, in my opinion, will be the most expensive. Because Inter Milan, when we go to them for a player, they seem to up the price a little bit because they've got some sort of problem with us. I don't know what the beef is. Onana the same. They don't want to give us the same price as potentially Manchester United. So that's a whole problem in itself, because we've already tried to go for an Inter Milan player and it's not been the easiest thing, reportedly. Maybe we don't want Onana that much. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. That is my kind of take on the striker situation. I would prefer Muani. If you're looking for someone who could play potentially both positions, Martinez. But I personally would have questions about Martinez if you used to use him as a lone striker. But if he has Nkunku, he's got the experience playing in the front too. They may just have to interchange. And Vlahovic scares the crap out of me, despite the fact that he has potential and he could be, you know, our big number 9 kind of presence, like a Hairline. He's not as good in terms of finishing, but like a Hairline in terms of that presence. For me, like I said, I'm scared of the profile because I just want someone who can play in between the lines. Stamford Bridge, low blocks. I need as much attributes and as much variety in your play as possible to unlock the door. If you're low on confidence because you haven't got much goals recently and your only option is to kind of stand within the width of the 6-yard box and wait, we do have creativity, so it's not like as if, you know, we're starved. We have Enzo Fernandez for the first full season now. We have Mudryk, who showed a bit of vision for the Ukrainian under-21s. You know, we've got players that can find you, that can spot you. But if we're having a bad day, my preference is always to still have a striker that can potentially add vision. And Muani's 14 assists, even though I don't think he's some incredible passer that can, you know, unlock a door like a Harry Kane, his dribbling, his ball carrying, that is something that he can bring to the team. You know, stretch the defensive line by running into the channels, giving Nkunku an opportunity to burst into the box and create space for him. Muani is going to be a better chance creator than Vlahovic. Martinez, sometimes he can be a bit selfish. Sometimes he doesn't pick his head up. We saw that for the Champions League final, not picking out Lukaku, and, you know, 3 assists, I guess, kind of speaks volumes in that sense. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. That's my take. Muani is my choice. Let me know what your choice is. Make sure you smash up the like, subscribe, big up your damn selves, and we will see you next time. In a bit, people. Peace.